Today I'm going to showcase and give you a guide on the best build in Minecraft Dungeons as of the Creeping Winter update. This build absolutely outperforms every other build that I have made or ever seen. Clearing the highest level difficulty with it is a breeze and a lot of fun. First up, I'll get into a brief showcase and explanation of what the playstyle of this build is, what its characteristics are, so movement speed, attack speed, and so on, and overall just give you a feel for this build. So getting into it, this is a melee damage and partially ranged damage build, as well as a speed running build. For damage, this build utilizes the pickaxe with the swirling and shockwave enchantments. The pickaxe was buffed in the Creeping Winter update, where its combo was changed to 1, and at the same time it still has a much faster attack speed than any of the other one combo hit weapons. This makes it so that you can activate shockwave and swirling on every single hit very consistently and very often. I made 2 videos breaking down exactly why the pickaxe is so good now, so if you would like to get more details on why the weapon is so good, you can head over to those videos. I'll leave a link up above in a card and also in the description below. The speedrunning element of this build comes in from various movement speed increasing effects. We have multiple movement speed increases on our armor from the armor effect itself and an enchantment. We also have an enchantment on our bow that boosts our movement speed, and we also have 3 artifacts which each boost our movement speed as well. And because of this, the movement speed on this build is insane. It is quicker than any other build that I have made, and it is just about the fastest movement speed that you can reach. While we're talking about speed, the attack speed of this build is also very fast because we are mixing the already fairly quick attack speed of the pickaxe with the deathcap mushroom, which increases that attack speed by a lot. Thanks to the cooldown effect and enchantments on our armor, we are able to pretty much infinitely keep up all of our artifacts. And finally, to top things off, we have a soul bow in the bow slot, which not only has a movement speed increasing enchantment, but also has the anima conduit enchantment, which makes us heal for every soul we collect. And this comes into huge use and is the only survivability tool that we even need with this build, just because of how quickly we are able to defeat mobs, and those souls just keep coming and healing you throughout your whole run. Your runs always go very smoothly. You are pretty much immortal. Overall, when you combine all of the elements that are included in this build, you come out with a build that is not only extremely powerful, but also one that is very fun to use. Now that I've given a brief showcase and explanation of the build, I want to break down each element of the build to let you know what you want to get, why you want to get it, where you want to get it, and more. First up, let's start off by taking a look at our melee weapon slot. For this slot, we have the pickaxe, and as simple and friendly as this weapon may look at first sight, under the surface, this weapon is actually a complete monster. The pickaxe is a fast attacking one combo hit weapon. While this weapon's base melee damage may not make it that great, it is its combination of a very fast attack speed and a one combo hit that makes it extremely powerful. If you really want to get a good understanding of why this weapon is so good and tips on how to utilize it best, I would really recommend that you check out the 2 videos that I made about it. One important thing to note that I do state in those videos is that this pickaxe cannot be a diamond pickaxe because Mojang did not change the combo hit of diamond pickaxes to 1. They only changed it for regular pickaxes to 1. The diamond pickaxe still has a combo hit of 2. Now to talk about the enchantments. The enchantments for this weapon are extremely important. Without them, this weapon is just not going to be effective, and with them, the weapon's going to be a beast. So getting into it, the first enchantment that you really want to get, your first priority, is the swirling enchantment. This enchantment will net you about 2000 AoE damage on every single hit, where you will be hitting enemies in a radius all around you. This enchantment boosts the damage of this weapon more than any of the others, and it is very important that you have it. Just about as equally important as swirling is the second priority enchantment, which is shockwave. The shockwave enchantment gives us another 1600 AoE damage on every single hit, and this enchantment hits enemies in a frontal cone in front of you. This is essentially swirling, it just deals a bit less damage, and its AoE is a bit less consistent, but that does not take away from how good it is. It will always be hitting a lot of mobs on each activation, and it can even act as a way to make your pickaxe into a ranged weapon in times where you may need it to be. Because if you use the keybind that makes your characters stand in one place while attacking, for a computer it is shift, then you can just keep on sending out shockwaves, and this can be very effective in situations where you're webbed or you're predicting where enemies are going to spawn in an ambush. One final thing that I want to note about Shockwave and Swirling is that they both are not affected by Thorns or by Deflect, so it is very easy to defeat enchanted mobs with this weapon. And also I still want to note that the melee damage on the pickaxe itself is very high, and it will be very effective on single targets, and it even does AoEs, so in some situations where the mobs are more grouped up, which they are thanks to the next enchantment that I will talk about, then you do a lot of damage with the pickaxe as well. Now to talk about our third priority enchantment. The enchantment is Gravity. It pulls in enemies around your area of impact, and it ends up grouping them together. At first glance, this enchantment seems like it will not do a lot for you, but once you start seeing it in game, you find out how powerful this enchantment really is. It really helps you group enemies up, and because of that, the melee damage on the pickaxe itself actually starts to become very effective, because while that melee damage area of effect is not very high, it groups up the mobs so well that your pickaxe starts hitting all of them at once, and that just adds a crazy amount of AoE to your overall runs. Additionally, this does really help you with the Shockwave enchantment, since Shockwave only activates in front of you, and this enchantment is able to pull in enemies from your sides and even from behind you. I do want to stress the fact that you really want to get a pickaxe with all three of these enchantments. I would say that Creepy Crypt is a great location to farm this pickaxe, and I want to note that you want to be fighting pretty much all of the mobs that you encounter while you're farming for this pickaxe, because mobs have a very high common item drop chance, and we are not looking for the unique variant of the pickaxe, so the mobs actually drop the base version of the pickaxe a lot, and when you combine that with chests that you can get in Creepy Crypt, you are going to be able to find the perfect pickaxe in no time. I would also say that you should do this on Apocalypse difficulty just so that you can get the 3 enchantment slots. If you are not to that level yet, then you could go on Adventure and just try to go for at least Shockwave and Swirling, which will still be effective, but for the highest performing version of this build, which I do recommend, you would want to get the 3rd enchantment slot with Gravity. That's it for our melee weapon slot, but now let's get into our armor slot, where we have the Evocation Robe or the Ember Robe if you are lucky enough to get the unique variant of it. I would not worry about getting the unique variant of this armor. It would probably raise your DPS by 0.1%, and the Evocation Robe is more than enough. So to speak more about the Evocation Robe, it is an amazing piece of armor that has been great since the launch of Minecraft Dungeons. The Evocation Robe has the very valuable 25% artifact cooldown reduction perk, and additionally a 15% movement speed increase aura. The artifact cooldown on this armor, when it's combined with some enchantments, makes it so that we can keep up our artifacts just about infinitely, and the movement speed bonus that we get from this armor actually ends up increasing our overall movement speed by a lot, just because it is a percentage movement speed increase, and we are stacking this with other percentage movement speed increases as well. To complement this amazing piece of armor, we also have 3 amazing enchantments, which I would say are really important to get. First up, and if you've watched some build guide videos, you've probably heard about this a lot, but we have double cooldown. Each of these enchantments reduce your artifact cooldown by 27%, and we need them in combination with the perk on our armor to be able to constantly keep up the Deathcap Mushroom, the Boots of Swiftness, the Gong of Weakening, and our Ghost Cloak just about infinitely as well. These 2 enchantments are first priority. You have got to get it on this piece of armor. They make it really strong, so you want to make sure that you're getting these 2 enchantments on your Evocation Robe. For the 3rd enchantment slot, we have an enchantment that's also pretty important, and I would really recommend going for, and that is Swift-Footed, which increases your movement speed by 50% for 3 seconds every time you roll. And when I was considering this enchantment, I didn't think that it would be worth putting on the armor, because I didn't want to deal with rolling every few seconds, and I thought that it could possibly slow me down in the end. But this actually ends up being really effective, because we are combining it with another roll activated enchantment, which you'll see in a moment. And aside from that, this build actually still feels really fluent even while you add rolling to it. In fact, I would say that it would feel even more fluid and also dynamic, just because we have some different movement every now and then. And the 50% increase to your movement speed that you gain from this enchantment is a huge boost, especially since this movement speed enchantment stacks with other movement speed enchantments. To get yourself an evocation robe, I would recommend farming for it in Obsidian Pinnacle and just fighting off every single mob pack that you see. Before I said that Soggy Swamp was the best place to farm for this robe, but after doing some pretty extensive testing on every location where the robe spawns, I found that High Block Halls dropped a lot of these robes when you fought every mob you saw. Additionally, one thing I want to note is when you fight these redstone golem bosses, if you go to one of the diversions, instead of just following the mission from that point, then you will actually end up going along a path where there are multiple more redstone golems, and each one of these has a pretty high item drop chance. So I would recommend just putting your Gong of Weakening on and getting through all of the redstone golems. Also, there's usually a chest at the end of those paths, and after some grinding, you should be able to get your hands on the perfect evocation robe for this build. Next up, moving on to our bow slot, we have the soul bow. Lord Force was actually the one that came up with using this bow with the enchantments that are on it, and so I thank him very much, and I wanted to give him the proper credit. If you get lucky, you could use one of the unique variants of the soul bow instead, the bow of lost souls, but you cannot use the other unique variant, the nocturnal bow, and I'll explain why that is in a moment. You don't have to worry about getting the unique variant of this bow. Just like with the ember robe, the bow of lost souls will probably end up increasing your damage by 0.01%. Anyways, the soul bow is exactly what it is titled. It is a soul bow. It has a charge up, it deals okay damage, and it has +1 soul gathering. The enchantments that we want on this bow are actually very important. The first priority enchantment that we want is the Anima Conduit enchantment. This enchantment on its own is our survivability, and this is what makes us, like I said earlier, pretty much immortal. It is very, very good for healing you. Once you start defeating mobs, the souls from the previous mobs that you defeated will follow you to the next mob pack that you fight, so even as you're fighting that next mob pack, you will still be healing from this enchantment. And because we're moving at such a fast pace with this build, the Anima Conduit enchantment comes in very handy. Anima Conduit on this bow is an extremely important part of this build. This makes us stay alive and keeps the whole build together like glue. So again, I want to say it is very important to get Anima Conduit on your soul bow. The second enchantment that we want, which isn't as high of priority as Anima Conduit is, but still is very helpful, is the Tempo Theft enchantment. This enchantment steals movement speed from mobs, slowing them down and making us faster, and it lasts for 4 seconds. It actually provides a very significant movement speed boost, especially when we're stacking this with swift-footed and all the artifacts. It makes a huge difference to have this one enchantment on. You will notice your movement speed is very quick when you have this as a part of your build. This is also why you can't use the Nocturnal bow unique variant of the regular soul bow, because the Nocturnal bow already comes with the Tempo Theft tier 1 perk on it, and because of that we are unable to get Tempo Theft on an enchantment slot, and so you want to stay away from the Nocturnal bow. The third priority enchantment that we want is the Burst Bowstring enchantment, which is a brand new enchantment that came out with the Creeping Winter update, and it makes it so that whenever you roll, you shoot 3 charged shots equivalent to 40% of a charged shot's damage. We want this enchantment not for the damage that it does, but because of how well it works with the Tempo Theft enchantment and also the Swift-footed enchantment that is on our armor. This makes it so that we do not have to stop and then shoot to get the Tempo Theft enchantment to activate. Instead, we can just roll, activate the Swift-footed enchantment while we're at it, and then also get some hits off on nearby mobs, which will activate the Tempo Theft enchantment. And to get the most out of this, you just want to keep rolling every 3 seconds, and that way you'll be able to keep up all of your movement speed boosts. You do have to get used to incorporating rolling as a part of your rotation, but once you get the hang of it, and once it becomes a part of your regular rotation, rolling is a very smooth process. Also, just one little thing, if you're on PC, I would recommend that you go to your keybinds and changing the roll that you use from the regular roll to the directional roll, and this just makes it so that now wherever your cursor is pointing is the direction in which you will roll, instead of just rolling whichever way your character is facing. I believe for all other platforms you already have directional roll on, so you shouldn't have this same problem. If you do have the same regular roll as PC does, then you should just check your key bindings and you should be able to change it there. To get your soul bow, I would recommend heading over to Creepy Crypt and farming it over there, just because there are a lot of chests and there are a lot of mobs which you can fight off. And the great thing is that you can farm for the soul bow at the same time that you farm for the pickaxe. Now let's talk about the artifact slots, which are really important to this build. The artifacts that are being used are the staple artifacts, the Deathcap Mushroom, the Boots of Swiftness, the Ghost Cloak, and also the Gong of Weakening as a swap in artifact. So first of all, we have the Deathcap Mushroom, which greatly increases attack and movement speed, and it has around a 13.6 second duration with a 30-second cooldown. The mushroom gives you a slight movement speed boost, which is amplified due to the other percentage movement speed increases, so that is useful. But mainly and most importantly, we get the increased attack speed, which is really strong when you combo this with the pickaxe. This makes your attack speed extremely fast, and we are also able to keep up the mushroom permanently because of our cooldown reductions that our armor has, and that allows us to always have a very fast attack speed. And the Deathcap Mushroom overall makes this build more than 2 times better, so it is extremely important that you get this. To get the Deathcap Mushroom, you can go to multiple places. I would recommend going to high block halls where it drops, and just farming for the obsidian chest that spawns there, and also just for the completion chest that you get there as well. In our next artifact slot, we have the Ghost Cloak, which lets you gain ghost form on activation, and this ghost form allows you to move right through mobs, take about 80% less damage, and also speeds your movement speed up by about 15%. And the cooldown on this cloak is 6 seconds. The movement speed increase is pretty big, and also the ability to walk through mobs makes your gameplay so smooth. You are just able to walk through absolutely any mob pack that you desire, and also the 80% damage reduction that you gain when you are in ghost form can easily be an amazing survivability tool once you get used to activating it at the right times. This is the only artifact that we are unable to keep up all the time with the double cooldown enchantments and the cooldown perk, but we are really close to it. There's only a split second of time in between uses of this artifact. You can get the Ghost Cloak in Creepy Crypt, so you can get it while you're farming for the pickaxe and also the soul bow. In our next artifact slot, we have the Boots of Swiftness, which just give us a short boost to our movement speed with about a 2.5 second duration and a 5-second cooldown. This just gives us a great movement speed, which we can keep up infinitely thanks to our cooldown reduction, and this just adds to our overall movement speed percentage, so it definitely adds a lot to our speed. The Boots of Swiftness drop on any difficulty at Creepy Crypt, so if you are farming for the pickaxe and the soul bow, you can get it there. The final artifact that we use for this build is the Gong of Weakening, which weakens enemies on use, and this will increase the damage that you do to them by 2 to 3 times. And basically you just want to be using this whenever you run into any boss or even any mini boss. You can keep this at the top of your artifacts bar, and whenever you run into a mini boss, quickly switch this in place of your Ghost Cloak, use this on the boss, fight it off, and then put your Ghost Cloak back on. This is a really useful tool for defeating those high HP enemies, so I really recommend getting it and swapping it in those situations. I would recommend farming for this at Desert Temple because there is an obsidian chest that spawns there that is really quick to get to. If you don't already know about it, you can easily get some info if you quickly search up the Desert Temple obsidian chest, but it is a really efficient way to farm for the Gong of Weakening, and you'll definitely get it in no time. And one thing to note is that the Gong of Weakening only drops on Apocalypse difficulty. This is the only item in the build that only drops on Apocalypse difficulty. Alright, well that's it for this build. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, then leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and comment down below what your thoughts are of this build. But other than that, everybody, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.